Heave-ho, Thomas. Thomas is a busy and happy engine. As he puffs and huffs across the island, he always toots hello to other engines and to children along the way, even when Thomas is pulling heavy loads. One morning, Thomas puffed into Brendam Docks. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting. "You are all here to welcome the new engine. His name is Hank." "I've heard he's very special. I've heard he's very strong." Hank puffed into the docks. Hank was very special. He had red wheels and a bright red cowcatcher, and he was very tall. The engines had never seen an engine like Hank before. Hank looks as strong as a giant. I'm sure he isn't stronger than a Sodor engine. "Now, Thomas, I have 3 jobs for you. First, you must take new machines from the docks to the factory. Then you are to pick up stone from the quarry and deliver it to the shunting yard. And lastly, you must pick up an old tractor from Farmer McCall's and take it to the repair yard." "Yes, sir." "And you must take Hank with you. Hank must see the important sights of Sodor. Be back by tea time for Hank's welcome party at Knapford." Thomas buffered up to the machine cars. Hank chuffed alongside. "Hello." "Howdy, Thomas. Now, you look like one of the finest little engines I've ever seen." Thomas didn't like being called little. "I'm a tank engine." Thomas thought Hank was being cheeky. "Those freight cars are way too heavy for you. Let me take them for you." Hank meant to be helpful, but it made Thomas cross. "No, thank you. I'm strong enough to pull much heavier loads than this." "I'd be happy to help." But Thomas was already puffing out of the docks. At the signal, Thomas didn't take the track to the factory. He chuffed straight to the quarry. Thomas pulled ahead. "I may not be grand, and I may not be long, but I will show Hank that I'm stronger than strong," he huffed to himself. Thomas and Hank puffed into the quarry. "Now I'm going to pick up the stone cars." Hank was surprised. "Hold your huffing there, Thomas. Let big old Hank take those cars for you." "No, thank you. Tank engines can pull very heavy loads." So Thomas heaved and huffed out of the quarry. Thomas wheezed and wheeshed. Handsome Hank gleamed and glowed by his side. Children waved from bridges. "Hello, Thomas." "Howdy, good to see you." "Hey, Thomas, aren't you gonna whistle hello?" Thomas hadn't the puff to whistle hello. Hank had plenty of puff. This made Thomas even crosser. Thomas pulled up to the halt. He was nearly out of puff. "Hello, Farmer McCall. This is Hank. He's the new engine on Sodor." "Howdy, Farmer McCall. That's a mighty fine tractor you have." "Say, Thomas, you look all out of puff and pull. I'll take it for you." "No, thank you." And the tractor was coupled up to the end of Thomas's freight cars. Thomas huffed and he puffed, and his wheels spun and spun. "Come on, Thomas, the train's too heavy for you. Take the pressure off your pistons. Couple me up." But Thomas was determined to pull the train on his own. "We must not be late for your party." Wheel turn by wheel turn, Thomas puffed away. Thomas and Hank arrived at Marin Station. Visitors waved at Thomas. Thomas wanted to whistle back, but he hadn't any spare steam. "Howdy, everybody. Thomas is a little overloaded right now. I'll whistle for him." Hank had lots of steam, and Hank blew the longest and loudest whistle. Then there was trouble. Thomas had cracked the cylinder. The train was much too heavy. Oh no, now the deliveries won't be made. You won't be back in time for your welcome party. And I'm not a really useful engine, or even a really strong one. Shucks, Thomas, I'm so sorry. That's too bad. I wanted to show you that I wasn't just a fine little steam engine. I wanted to show you that I am really strong. So I didn't want to ask for your help. But I do now. Please, Hank. I'd be happy to help. You give the orders, I'll do the pushing. Hank and Thomas dropped off Farmer McCall's tractor. The workmen were very sorry to see Thomas had broken down. Next, Hank and Thomas chuffed into the shunting yards. The yard manager was waiting. The stone cars were uncoupled. I hope you're back on track really soon, Thomas. Finally, Thomas and Hank delivered the new machines to the factory. Thank you, Thomas. Hank pushed Thomas back to Knapford Station. They arrived just in time for the party. Thank you, Hank. Now all of Sodor knows what a strong engine you are. Hank smiled. And I know something, too. You're the engine everyone cheers for on Sodor. That's something to be proud of. Thomas smiled. Hank was very special. He was a very special new friend. James works it out. James is a bright red engine. He always likes to look his best. To do his best. And to show the other engines he knows best, too. It was winter on the island of Sodor. Thomas, Stanley, and James were working at the yards. They were shunting trains to take to Great Waterton. They had to arrive on time. Stanley watched James shunting his freight cars. They wiggled and giggled. James quickly biffed and bashed his cars into line. You're the best biffer I've ever seen. Oh, that was nothing. See how easily I can shunt heavy Hector. James collected Hector. Stanley watched as James shunted Hector to the back of his train. Snow started to fall. I'm ready to leave. I'll see you both at Great Waterton. It's starting to snow, James. You should check the weather with the yard manager. James didn't want to be told what to do by a freight car, especially in front of Thomas and Stanley. I'll decide what we do. The weather doesn't bother me. So James buffered up to his train and steamed slowly out of the yards. James puffed through the countryside. The snow was getting heavier. James stopped at a signal. Harold swooshed in. There's bad weather all over the island. It's very hard to see the tracks. Then, James, we better go to Henry's Tunnel. James sniffed. He didn't want to be told what to do by a freight car, especially in front of Harold. I'll decide what we do. We'll take the track through Shen Valley. It's the quickest way. The signal changed, and James puffed away, pushing his train. James arrived at the Shen Valley Junction. Now, the snow was very thick. It made it hard for James to see ahead. James puffed onto the wrong track. James thought he was steaming through Shen Valley, but he wasn't. He was steaming towards the snowy hills. James saw Edward in a siding. He was wearing his snowplow.
The ice has made the line ahead very slippery. It will be hard to shunt your train up the hill.
James was surprised he was in the hills. I must have taken the wrong track, he thought.
I've had to clear snow from lots of lines.
James was worried. We need Edward's help. He could couple up to the front of the train. But James didn't want to be told what to do by a freight car, especially in front of Edward.
I'll decide what we do. I can manage on my own.
So James puffed slowly towards the hill. James huffed and puffed. He steamed and strained. His face was now as red as his boiler. James arrived at the top of the hill. He was very pleased. Now I can puff fast down the other side, he thought. Then there was trouble. Hector could see a snowslide had blocked the line. Hector knew that if James slowed down at the bottom, they would get stuck in the drift. Onwards, onwards! Don't slow down, James! But James didn't want to be told what to do, especially by a freight car. I'll decide what we do, he huffed to himself. So James applied his brakes. The train smashed into the snow, and it stuck. James couldn't make his delivery. He felt very bad.
James is silly. James is slow. James has got us stuck in the snow.
James wished he had checked with the yard manager about the weather. He wished he hadn't tried to find his way through Shen Valley. And he wished he had asked Edward to be his front engine.
Now I know Hector was trying to help me.
The freight cars giggled.
Quiet! Please, Hector. How can I deliver my train on time?
Hector was happy to help.
I'm a very heavy freight car. We must race down the hill at full speed. Then we will biff the train right through the snow.
What a good idea. So Hector was uncoupled from the train. James wheeshed and wheeshed. At last, he had hauled Hector back to the top of the hill. Okay, James, go! Hector and James raced faster and faster down the hill. There was a mighty biff, and Hector pushed the train right through the snow. We did it, Hector! Well done! Hector was pleased. Stanley and Thomas were already at Great Waterton. James, Hector, and the train arrived. You made it!
We were worried!
I wasn't worried. Hector helped me all the way. Stanley and Thomas looked surprised.
You can always rely on a good freight car.
Hector was happy to have helped. And James was happy to have a new friend. Tram trouble. Thomas the tank engine and Toby the steam tram are very good friends. Toby always tells Thomas when he's worried. And Thomas is always happy to help Toby. One bright morning, Thomas puffed into Allsdale Inn.
Hello, Toby.
You look happy.
Sir Topham Hatt has asked me to lead the parade at the first Great Waterton Festival.
Thomas was pleased for his friend.
That's because you're the only steam tram on Sodor. Everyone will cheer for you.
Thomas puffed quickly away. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for him at Great Waterton. He had 3 important jobs to do. Thomas raced into Great Waterton.
Fizzling fireboxes.
Waiting on the rails was another steam tram. Thomas, this is Flora. She's the new steam tram on Sodor.
Flora smiled her sunniest smile.
Hello, Thomas. Hello.
Flora is to lead the parade with Toby.
Thomas gasped.
Take Flora to meet Toby. Then Toby must bring Flora back here for the parade. Thomas was worried.
Toby thinks he's leading the parade all by himself, thought Thomas. Now he will be very upset. I must keep Flora away from Toby until after the parade.
Thomas and Flora arrived at the junction. Suddenly, an idea flew into Thomas's funnel.
I will take Flora to do one of my jobs before we go to Allsdale End, he chuffed to himself. By then, Toby will have left to lead the parade. Let's go to the woodyard first. It won't take long. That sounds exciting.
So they raced away to the woodyard. Thomas collected a flatbed of heavy logs.
Now we can meet Toby.
Flora was pleased.
Hooray, she peeped prettily.
They set off.
Toby, you must go. Hurry now and lead the show, he puffed to himself.
Flora and Thomas waited at the junction to Toby's shed. It looked empty.
Come on, Flora!
Flora pumped her pistons perkily. Suddenly, Thomas saw steam coming from Toby's shed.
Cinders and ashes, he thought. Toby's still here. Toby mustn't see Flora. Flora, I've just remembered. We must go to the quarry first.
Flora was surprised.
If you say so, Thomas.
And they puffed away. At the shunting yard, Thomas was coupled up to the stone cars.
Now we can meet Toby.
That made Flora very happy.
Toby, please have gone. Lead the show, be proud and strong, he puffed to himself.
Thomas and Flora arrived at Allsdale End. This time, Thomas was sure Toby's shed was empty.
Come on, Flora! Oh no, thought Thomas. Toby's still there. Toby mustn't see Flora. Flora, we are late to pick up my load. We must go to the docks. If you say so, Thomas.
And they puffed quickly away. At the docks, Thomas was coupled up to his large load to take to Great Waterton. Thomas was sure Toby would now be leading the parade.
Come on, Flora.
Flora's axles ached, but Thomas steamed stronger. Thomas and Flora puffed up to the junction. Then there was trouble. Flora had chuffed too far. She had run out of coal.
I'm sorry, Thomas.
Flora's wheels wobbled weakly. Thomas felt bad. He knew it was his fault. Then he heard a chuff, and a puff, and a ring of a bell. It was Toby.
Thomas, I've been waiting for you. Who's that?
Cinders and ashes. Toby had met Flora. Neither of them was at the parade. Thomas couldn't have felt worse. Sir Topham Hatt would be very cross.
Flora, this is Toby. Toby, this is Flora.
Toby looked very happy. Thomas was surprised.
I wanted to tell you, Thomas, that I was too scared to lead the parade by myself. But now, Flora and I can lead it together.
I thought I knew what you wanted, Toby, but I was wrong.
Now Thomas had to quickly put right his mistake.
Flora, take my coal. I'll pick up more. Puff as fast as you can to Great Waterton.
Toby and Flora soon puffed away. Later, Thomas chuffed into Great Waterton. The parade was ready to leave. Thomas's flatbed was uncovered. Flora gasped. She had a wonderful new tram car. Toby was pleased. Thomas watched his two friends lead the first Great Waterton parade. The children cheered. The brass band boomed. Now I have another best friend, and she is a steam tram too. And Thomas smiled his happiest smile. Push me, pull you. One bright spring morning at the coal yard, the yard manager was talking to Skarloey.
A puppet show is coming.
The children will be excited. No one in the hills has ever seen a puppet show.
Skarloey wanted to pull the puppet show special, so he raced away. Skarloey puffed into the transfer yards. Thomas and the narrow gauge controller were already there.
Please, sir, may I pull the puppet show special?
That's a fine idea, Skarloey. Skarloey's boiler bubbled with excitement. Watch out, they're heavy. Skarloey buffered up. Slowly, Skarloey puffed away. The cars were heavy. But Skarloey was happy. The puppet show special was his. Skarloey heaved and hauled up the steep hill. At last, he reached the top. Rheneas was there. He was very excited to see the puppet show special.
Those cars look heavy. I could help you.
Skarloey didn't want to share his special with Rheneas.
No, thank you. I can pull these cars on my own, Rheneas. I'm stronger than you. No, you're not. Oh, yes, I am.
Then an idea flew into Skarloey's funnel.
We'll put the cars between us and pull our hardest. The strongest engine will pull the puppet show special.
Rheneas was soon coupled up to the back of the train. They pulled with all their strength and steam. First, the cars trundled one way. Then they trundled the other. Skarloey was determined to win. Then, Rheneas heard a creaking and a cranking. He knew the couplings were being pulled too hard. But Skarloey wouldn't give up. I must win, he thought. Then there was trouble. With a crack and a clank, Rheneas' couplings snapped. The puppet show cars bashed and bumped into Skarloey and pushed him down the other side of the hill. Skarloey was scared. He tried to apply his brakes, but they wouldn't work. The puppet show special rattled and roared. Skarloey flew faster down the steep hill. Skarloey saw Duncan. He was pushing cars a-bunting onto the main track.
Look out, Duncan! Stop!
But it was too late. Skarloey crashed into Duncan's cars. Bunting flew into the air. It fell all over Skarloey. Duncan was cross.
Oh, sorry, Duncan, but I must get the puppet show to the children.
Skarloey raced on. The puppet show special clattered and shattered. Then Skarloey saw Rusty at a junction ahead. Rusty was pulling cars of special ice cream.
Out of my way! I can't stop!
Rusty stopped right across the tracks. Skarloey bashed into Rusty's cars. Ice cream flew into the air and spattered all over the engines. Rusty was cross. Now there would be no ice cream at the puppet show.
Sorry, Rusty, but I must get the puppet show to the children.
So Skarloey clattered on. Skarloey was puffing towards Percival Pond. Then there was trouble. Skarloey went round the bend too fast. He steamed into a siding. Skarloey bashed through the buffers. And with a splash, a sploosh, and a splosh, Skarloey plunged into Percival Pond.
Fizzling fireboxes. I wanted to pull the puppet show special on my own. Now look what I've done. The children won't have ice cream or flags. They won't have their puppet show. Help!
But there was no one to hear. Then Skarloey heard a whistle he knew. That's Rheneas, he thought. Rheneas puffed to the edge of Percival Pond. Skarloey had never been happier to see his friend.
I puffed as quickly as I could. I thought you might need my help. And I do. I wanted to show you that I was the strongest. But all I've shown you is that I'm the silliest.
But Rheneas was happy to help. Slowly, Rheneas heaved and hauled his friend out of the pond. At last, Skarloey was back on the rails. But his firebox was out, and his coal was wet.
Rheneas, you must take the puppet show to the children.
I have other jobs to do.
Me? Thank you, Skarloey.
And Rheneas puffed proudly away with the puppet show special. Skarloey had a lot to do. He delivered new cars of ice cream to Rusty. Then Skarloey found Duncan. Duncan's cars were now filled with the bunting.
I'm going to be late for the puppet show. Don't worry, Duncan. I'll help you. We'll steam to the showground in no time.
Duncan and Skarloey arrived just in time. The children were gathered round the puppet show.
Welcome, everyone, to the first puppet show in the hills.
The children cheered. Skarloey puffed up to Rheneas.
You're my best friend, Rheneas. And there's nothing stronger than friendship.